Hey Valley Metal, welcome back to another G67 math video. Tonight we're going to be multiplying positive and negative mixed numbers. But before we do that, let's go ahead and start off with our trivia question today. What was the first American Girl doll ever made? We'll have a drop-in visit on the household expert to get the answer to that question after our instruction. Tonight officially our target is I can multiply positive and negative mixed numbers. Let's do this thing. How would you multiply mixed numbers when one of them is negative? Do you remember how to multiply mixed numbers? If you do, the process is really the same. You go ahead and turn that mixed number into an improper fraction. You multiply straight across, and then you reduce. When you're done, you got to make sure that you've kept that negative symbol around, because if it was a negative 2 1/2, that's not a negative 2 plus a positive 1/2. That's a total negative 2 1/2, or a negative 5/2. You'll notice how I carried the negative symbol through all the way, because here we have a negative times a positive, which will give us a negative answer. Let's take a look at our must-know words for today. A couple of them here. First of all, mixed number. That's a whole number and a fraction, like 3 1/2 over here. And then an improper fraction is like 7/2, and that's when the numerator is larger than the denominator. We need to flip to that in order to multiply. Take a quick look here. 3 1/2 times a negative 10. I made that mixed number into an improper fraction. I made 10 into a fraction, just put it over 1, or improper fraction. Now we have 7/2 times a negative 10 over 1. Multiply straight across, we have negative 70 halves. That would reduce negative 70 divided by 2. That's a negative 35. A couple things to remember. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. Remember, if it's an even number of negative symbols, when you're multiplying or dividing, you are going to have a positive quotient or product, or answer if you'd like to say it that way. If you have an odd number of negative symbols, when you're multiplying or dividing, it's going to be a negative answer. Quick review. How do you change a mixed number into an improper fraction? Let's say we have the mixed number 4 1/4. You multiply the whole number times the denominator, add in the numerator. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17/4. And if that's negative mixed number, then the improper fraction, of course, is negative. You can see my work down here. 4 times 4 plus 1. The next question is, how do you flip it back? Now you have negative 19/3. We often see answers like this. It could be a negative. I put it in parentheses. It doesn't have to be negative. Well, that means 19 divided by 3. So here's my 19. I'm dividing it by 3. Goes in there 6 times. I've got 18. I subtract it out. I have 1 left over. Now what do I do? Well, the wholes, this is your answer. You have 6 wholes, and there's 1 part of 3 parts remaining. It goes in there 6 times, and there's 1 part of 3 remaining. If it's a negative, then it would be a negative 6 1/3. That's why the blinking there. You have to double check when you're working with negative numbers. Did you remember to carry the negative through? Is it really a negative? Was it 2 negative numbers which multiplied together would be a positive number? So just keeping an extra awareness to that. I've laid out some steps here, and we'll work through a couple problems with you, then I'll cut you loose. How would you multiply 4 9/10 times a negative 1/2? Well, 4 9/10 times a negative 1/2. First of all, I flip this guy into an improper fraction. 4 times 10 is 40, plus 9, it's 49/10. I looked, can I reduce, do any cross reducing? I can't. So I just multiply straight across. Now I have 49/20, which now I have to reduce or rewrite. That is a mixed number, so that's 2 9/20, and then just double check. Do I have the negative? Did I carry it through? Let's see, I had a positive times a negative, so my answer is going to be negative. I have my negatives right in here. I did carry it through. Negative 2 9/20. Let's take a look at another example. What is 2 2/3 times 1 1/8? And we are going to throw negative symbols in there. I forgot to do that. I'm sorry about that. Just throw that in real quick. So here's the problem. Negative 2 2/3 times a negative 1 1/8. Well, the first thing I notice, I've got 2 negatives, so my answer should be positive. I have a negative times a negative. But first of all, I have 2 mixed numbers. That makes it a little bit weirder. So I have to take and turn those both into improper fractions. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8 thirds, so a negative 8 thirds. Over here, 1 times 8 is 8, plus 1 will give me a negative 9 eighths. Now, let's just say that I forgot to cross reduce here. You can definitely see that I could, but let's just say I forgot. Your answer will work out the same, so I just multiplied straight across. 8 times 9 is 72. 3 times 8 is 24. This is a negative times a negative, so my answer is positive. I end up with 72 24ths. I can divide both of these by 24 and get 3 is my answer, because that's what 72 divided by 24 is. Here's that same example where I cross reduce, and this is typically what I like to do because I like to work with smaller numbers. Here's the same problem I set up. Here's my negative 8 thirds. Here's my negative 9 eighths. I divided by 3 here and 3 here diagonally. I divided by 8 here and 8 here. So now when I multiply across, really all that's left is 1 over 1 times 3 over 1. 1 times 3 is 3 over 1. There's my answer is 3. So I like the cross reducing. Sometimes I forget to do it. If I don't do it, you just end up doing a little bit more work at the end. Don't forget, double check that answer. It was a negative times a negative, so I should have a positive answer there. All right, I believe it's time for you to try some. Oh, I got my bottom lines. Here's my bottom lines for you when multiplying fractions, mixed numbers. Turn the mixed numbers into improper fractions. Reduce if you remember, or multiply straight across. There's no common denominator needed or anything like that. And then reduce or rewrite at the end. You're going to have to flip that improper fraction back into a mixed number and make sure you deal with the negatives. So here are some problems. I left my steps over here. Why don't you go ahead and try this first one. Okie dokie, let's see how you did. Negative 1 2 thirds times 2 1/4. If you turn them into improper fractions, you have negative 5 thirds and 9 fourths, and you can cross reduce there. You end up with 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 4 is 4 is 15 fourths, which is a negative 3 3/4. Now, in case you didn't cross reduce there, I also did it the other way as well. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is negative 5 thirds. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9 fourths. Multiply straight across. You have 45 twelfths, which you can reduce down into negative 3 9 twelfths, or a negative 3 3/4. Your answer is the same. Double check to make sure you kept the negative all the way through. So it was a negative times a positive. So my answer should be a negative. I carried my negatives through. Yep, here's my negative, here's my negative. Negative, 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 negative. Yikes. Kind of like my first girlfriend. Everything's negative. Oh, was that out loud? Oh, sorry about that. All right. Here we go. Try this one. Last pause problem. All right. First thing I notice is I've got two negatives. A negative times a negative is going to end up with a positive answer, right? All right. Let's see. Here's the way I did it. 3 1/4. That's 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1. I have negative 13 fourths. And then 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is a negative 12 fifths. I cross reduced here. I divided by 3. I'm sorry, I divided by 4. It went in here 1 time, went in here 3 times. So when I multiply across, I have 39 fifths. Of course, that's positive because now I had a negative times a negative. 39 divided by 5, it goes in there 7 times, and there's 4 fifths remaining. And of course, that is a positive. How about that? This is why we check our answers, because we had a negative times a negative. Had an extra negative symbol in there. All right, thank you so much for listening. Let's get your ticket to the show. 2 problems, negative 4 2/5 times a negative 1/4. And then 2 1/4 times a negative 2 1/5. So you have a negative times a negative and a positive times a negative. All right, bring in my guest speaker here, Tara. Tara, who was the first American Girl doll ever made?
It was Samantha, Molly, and Kirsten, and they were made in 1986.
Right, so here's a bunch of the dolls. I actually couldn't find a picture, just the 3 of them, but Kirsten was supposedly born in 1854, that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
1954 was Samantha and Molly in 1944. I would have guessed the names were reversed. I would have thought Molly might have been the oldest. Kirsten doesn't sound like a name from the 1854. But all right, thanks for watching. If you have a video trivia question that you'd like to submit sometime to me, I'm always looking for them. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Bye.